The year 3000 AD was a time of unknown peace and prosperity. It was a utopia beloved by all, except for a man named Nathaniel Richards. Named for the warlord who brought this time of peace upon the world, he became obsessed with past eras and the adventure and excitement that they got to experience. He looked into his ancestor, Dr. Doom, and discovered his plans for the world's first time machine. Using those plans, he was able to build a time machine of his own, disguise it as the Sphinx, and go back to the year 2930 BC in ancient Egypt. There, he was able to use his technology to become worship as a god and rule as a pharaoh over the land of Egypt. That is, until superheroes decided to time travel themselves.
Welcome to the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Multiverse. My name is Jimmy, your co-captain, and with me we have...
Flonzo, your pilot for this duration of the journey.
And today we are talking again about our dearly beloved Rama Tut and his misadventures.
Yeah, in case you find yourself traveling through time and end up in this era, we want to let you know how convoluted things already are.
Yes, we will give you all the exits. We will let you know about the overhead baggage and storage. If the lavatory sign is on, please do not use the restroom because this is some shit.
Oh, yeah. So it was the year 2940 BC when the first superheroes arrived back in the rule of Rama Tut. They said, here we are, and were immediately shot by Rama Tut. So.
Bang. Welcome.
So, he had a really hard time with them. So these were the West Coast Avengers who showed up. Are you familiar with the West Coast Avengers?
No.
Basically, there was sort of a little bit of a falling out with Hawkeye and the rest of the Avengers. I believe it was like the aftermath of the Shi'ar war with the Kree. But what's important is that he ended up forming his own team of Avengers for the West Coast.
Hawkeye did?
Hawkeye did, yeah.
Okay. Who are the main players?
So the four that we're going to be dealing with today, we have Iron Man. Most of the listeners, viewers will know who Iron Man is, sort of a weapons developer in a suit of iron. Well, not really iron, I think it's a titanium alloy, but...
Not to split hairs.
Yeah, but in a metal suit, he's got, all sorts of gizmos installed in his exosuit. You have Hawkeye, who's the leader of the West Coast Avengers. He's a former circus performer who's just good with arrows, and then he saw Iron Man, got inspired to be a hero himself.
Nice.
Next up is Wonder Man, who was actually given some super strength and invulnerability by Baron Zemo, and then later joined the Avengers.
Also an actor?
Also an actor, which, a funny side note, I could not find a single story arc involving him being a successful actor. He's treated in these comics like he was successful. He left the Avengers to be an actor, but...
He's just like an improv comic.
Yeah, I mean, everyone acts like, oh yeah, now that you're this big shot actor, and please let me know in the comments if I'm missing something, but there were comics about him struggling as an actor, and then everyone's like, oh yeah, now that you're this big Hollywood star, but...
You're like, I never saw the film.
Yeah. The Avengers just don't go to the movies, so assumed he was successful, and he's just like, yeah, when I was a successful actor all those years.
They're like, sure, buddy. Sure. It was a student film.
It got shown at festivals.
Which ones? Shut up.
The Ernie's Basement Festival.
Ernie's Basement and Whole Foods. Okay.
Yeah.
And then we have...
Tigra's our last member here who, when she was in college, she got super strength from a college professor of hers. And that college professor later turned out to be a cat person who then turned her into a cat person.
As cat people do.
As cat people do.
Yeah. Okay.
This was not the first time I tried to understand her history or the history of the cat people, and it probably won't be the last.
Okay, cool. I'll take it for face value there.
So these are the 4 West Coast Avengers who travel back in time to, well, a little background is what they're doing. They were sent back in time by a guy named Dominus, who's part of an alien race called the Arcane, who is the same alien race that Lucifer, who has nothing to do with the Archangel Lucifer. And he, at one point in time, like Lucifer, not the guy who sent them back in time, was famous for dropping a bunch of rocks on Professor X's legs, crippling him.
Yes. Yes. Familiar.
So, and also just worth noting, within this story arc, Dominus, who sent them back in time, also had a group of Arizona stereotypes.
Arizona stereotypes?
Yeah, so the Avengers were in Arizona, encountered like this group of supervillains called Sunstroke. Gila or Gia, depending on how you pronounce it.
Gila.
Gila, yeah.
Gila. Yep.
My gringo accent there, or pronunciation.
I grew up in the Southwest, so actually, one of the stories we're talking about took place in one of the towns that my grandparents lived. So, yeah, Lordsburg, New Mexico.
Oh, way cool. We'll have to get into that. Yeah, I think that probably takes place outside of ancient Egypt, but we'll cover that.
My grandparents actually lived in ancient Egypt.
Oh,
my grandpa was Rama Tut.
That explains all the weird artifacts you have in your house.
Definitely. No, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, the 2 others were Butte, who was like sand, like made of sand and rocks, and Cactus.
Okay.
Who is named Cactus.
Clever.
So those guys, they had stolen Doctor Doom's time platform, and they used that to send the West Coast Avengers back in time to the year 1876.
Okay.
Where they encountered someone who had sort of a psychic link to one of their people they had worked with, gave her like a note, said, keep this with some kind of family artifact. It says, find the Fantastic Four, because their time machine had been broken so that it could only go backwards in time.
Okay.
For reasons we'll get into actually at the end of this episode, led them to this time of 2940 BC to meet Rama Tut and use his time machine to get home.
And as Rama Tut does with his special plot gun, is like, welcome, blast, blast.
Yeah, this happened to land right in front of him and
Classic.
Just shoots him with those take away the powers gun, make you unconscious gun.
Take away the powers gun.
It does, like, for a few seconds, Wonder Man doesn't have powers in this.
Yeah. So the West Coast Avengers are laying powerless in the blistering Egyptian sun, all of them kind of musing about being held captive by Rama Tut. And then we get the origin story from him again, but canonically, this is the first time we get this story, right, Flonzo? Do you want to tell this one more time?
In terms of canonically, the first group of heroes to go back in time, hear this story about how he knew about the Fantastic Four. He talks about knowing the East and the West Coast Avengers, which the brief period of time where that's relevant is when the West Coast Avengers go back here. But yeah, basically, he's a guy from the year 3000 who really obsessed with these past times, these past heroes, wants to have his own adventures, so goes back in time to the dawn of civilization.
Yeah. So what we see here is we see a group of, I don't know what you'd call these guys. So are they like apostles, prophets, worshippers of Khonshu?
Yeah, so Rama Tut told his men, take them away, just essentially have them buried alive in the temple to Khonshu.
Oh, got it. Okay, cool. Thank you. So,
and actually, just for some of the historical perspective that I'd like to
pepper in there.
Yeah, add a little spice of history in here. He was actually called, by the ancient Egyptians, Khonsu.
Okay.
Around this time in history, he was kind of seen as like sort of this deity to be feared more than worshipped in our actual history. Within the context of the Marvel comics, he's got this temple built, so maybe they started kind of fearing him as a deity around this point because of Rama Tut's bands. But there is a temple to Khonshu, and he's kind of this ostracized god since everyone's worshipping Rama Tut.
Okay. That's interesting. I didn't know that he was like a a literal historical.
Yeah, the
Okay.
actual big temple tomb was built in the 1100 BC, but yeah.
Very cool. So, one of the last things we see before we transition into something we'll discuss here in a quick second is we see Hawkeye laying down, and he's kind of like very tired.
Yeah, he's actually weak because of some burns he got back in 1775, Arizona, when it was part of Mexico.
Yeah.
Basically, Wonder Man just took a bunch of guns, tried crushing them together, and there was an explosion from the gunpowder. Hawkeye was right there. He's badly burned from that.
Yeah. Okay. So, and he's just sitting here saying, "Love you, can't let you go. I'll get to you somehow." And he trails off. I don't know if we talked about this at the top of the episode. I think we mentioned it, but this story is fun. I'm going to use the word fun in the way because it's tying together like 6 different timelines.
Yeah. We're telling the story of ancient Egypt, but I think we should pepper on some of the other stories because some interesting things are happening. I don't want to say at the same time, but 2 characters in different times as this story is progressing.
Yeah, there's like subsequent stories happening, not at the same time.
Yeah,
but...
all the different sort of stops the West Coast Avengers had made a long time because their timeline could only, or their time machine could only go backwards in time.
Yep.
So they made quite a few pit stops on the way here.
Yes.
And so, bearing all this in mind, you have Hawkeye, who's, passed out. He gets sort of into, like, this dreamlike state, and he finds himself, like, in the realm of Khonshu himself. And you see all these sort of flying moons going around. And he makes a deal with Khonshu that he'll fight Rama Tut in exchange for Khonshu sending a message to the future for them to go back in time and save them. While they're back in time, Hawkeye had, like, met a someone they had worked with named Firebird had visions of, Benito Juarez. Or Benito Juarez is another name for Firebird, who's been having visions of this woman who is her ancestor. Hawkeye had written a note for the Fantastic Four and said, hey, just keep this somewhere safe. He already had kind of planted that seed, and so he made this deal with Khonshu that, hey, help that plan work out and we'll fight Rama for you.
Okay. Cool.
So that's sort of the covenant he'd set up with Khonshu in this scene.
Okay. So then we're going to skip ahead to the West Coast Avengers rousing from sleep.
Hawkeye's finding that all his burns from Wonder Man's recklessness in a previous issue are healed now.
Yeah. And then you have the bodyguards, or what did we say these guys are?
Temple priests.
Temple priests?
Yeah.
They have dug a passage beneath the sands, and they're going to take the Avengers, the West Coast Avengers, to Rama Tut's Sphinx.
Yeah, and meanwhile, Hawkeye kind of says to Wonder Man, oh, we should have a conversation about being dead, because Wonder Man was famously died in an early Avengers issue and was resurrected.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess that brings us back to Doctor Strange. He's arriving right about this time. So Doctor Strange, he was sent back in time after his own sort of romp going backwards through the time stream. He was sent by a being called Nightmare, who kind of looks a little bit like Neil Gaiman's Sandman, which would be created sometime later. He's actually a part of the Dreadlords, I'm pretty sure is what I meant to write here, and not Dear Lords.
The Dear Lords.
But they actually are like the same group that we talked about in our first episode. The guys like the Dweller in Darkness and Despair. Sure. They're kind of lumped in with that same group.
Oh, that's super interesting. So they're meant to be like, so mind you, I don't have any prior knowledge of these guys, but what would you call those, like personifications of like emotions?
Exactly, yeah. And Despair, he does have his origin like being tied to being created out of specifically the despair of the people from Atlantis, but like Nightmare, as much as his origin has been explained, he is like Nightmare's incarnate.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
So most of them are that kind of a thing, but they're kind of more of as a group, they're grouped together a lot, but they're almost more like an alliance between these kind of evil personification demon kind of things.
So what was his motivation for sending Doctor Strange back in time?
So where Doctor Strange is there was a woman, Mariana Blessing, who went back, met a past, like herself from a past life, causing like a shard of her soul to get rocketed backwards through all her past lives. And once it gets to the origin of humanity, people lose their ability to dream. So Nightmare's afraid of that and is sending Doctor Strange back to intercept one of her past lives and stop that. Like,
that rocketing spirit.
That rocketing spirit going backwards through time, essentially. Yeah.
She's like, Strange, I threw like the longest Hail Mary. I need you to go and intercept this. It's really out there.
And interestingly, like Nightmare, as he's asking like the question, oh, how did this come to be? Like he summons like this exposition demon to like explain what's going on. And it creates actually a cool little like paneling moment where he like shoots out the next panel as he's going back in time to ancient Egypt.
That's awesome. Flonzo, yeah. I feel like you're our personal exposition demon.
Yeah, you know, I was actually summoned by a guy in the mid-'80s who, actually right around this time this was coming out, he saw this comic, thought it was a good idea, and that's actually how I came into existence.
Canonically.
Yeah. For those viewers at home who aren't familiar with my
origin story. Also, we're still chasing that shard of your spirit back in time.
That spirit was like millennia ahead. That's actually how we first met. It was Jimmy whose future self met a past incarnation of himself.
Yeah, we still don't dream. Sorry, aside.
But yeah, so Strange arrives, I guess it's 2940 BCE, and he shows up on top of the Sphinx as he sees this army coming up. He's sort of like vaguely becomes aware that there's some weird kind of energy inside the Sphinx, does a quick spell, and the back panel opens up in the Sphinx, so he hops down into it, which then brings us to our next group of heroes who show up to this time period.
The Fantastic Four. So quick roll call. Who is currently in ancient Egypt with Rama Tut?
So right now we've got the 4 members of the West Coast Avengers to make it all the way back there. We've got Hawkeye, Wonder Man, Tigra,
Iron Man.
Iron Man, that's right. And then we've got the Fantastic Four here, as well as Doctor Strange. So this is our first introduction to the Fantastic Four. So we've got Mr. Fantastic, who's the smartest man alive, in addition to having stretching powers. And they're kind of this like group of celebrity superhero adventurers who travel to places like ancient Egypt. Then you have the Thing, who's kind of covered in rocks, is sort of his curse.
He gets his rocks on. Yes, sir.
We've kind of mentioned this before. Personality-wise, he's largely influenced by Jack Kirby, who's the artist on a lot of these early Marvel stories. We also, on the team, have the Invisible Girl, who is Reed Richards' girlfriend. And she is basically the same personality type as any woman who was written by Stan Lee during this period. Mm-hmm. Lastly, we have the Human Torch, who's Sue's younger brother. He can catch on fire, fly around using that fire.
And so, as Flonzo had mentioned earlier, there is kind of this invading army that Doctor Strange had saw in wonderful Fantastic Four fashion. They quickly dispose of them, with each kind of showing off their abilities in unique ways. You see the Thing kind of tie up several of them in what looks to be, I don't know, some type of like leathers. You see Mr. Fantastic go all stretchy and tangle several chariots together. Mrs. Fantastic turns invisible and several crash into each other, where the Human Torch lights flames around several of them, sparking them to kind of run off and flee. And at this time, we see Rama Tut do his lovely Rama Tut things and shoot them with his anti-powers ability and bring them back to his chambers.
Meanwhile, back inside the Sphinx, Doctor Strange discovers that the Sphinx is filled with all this futuristic technology that's certainly not there in our modern days. So he's flying around, and the Sphinx recognizes there's this intruder, and it starts launching all these anti-intruder traps And eventually his cloak of levitation gets caught between two sliding doors. So he slips that off, and then suddenly all these lasers start shooting at him. So he summons like this shield from the realm of the Seraphim that's starting to hold him off. But eventually they break through and he is defeated.
Doctor Strange is defeated or the Sphinx is defeated?
Doctor Strange is defeated and he's unconscious.
Oh, so the trap's got him.
The trap's got him.
Damn. That's Sphinx.
Man.
That's tricky.
Sly Sphinx. So meanwhile, the West Coast Avengers are with the priests of Khonshu, and the priests are taking them like through this underground tunnel into the Sphinx, and they give them a map of the inside of the Sphinx.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And while they're in there, they see a bunch of robots who are carrying the unconscious Doctor Strange, and then they start to fight the robots.
Yeah, this is where they have like the first kind of convergence of the heroes meeting, right?
Yeah. And one thing that's totally worth noting is the covers are kind of like paying homage to each other at the same time. Like if you look at the Doctor Strange cover, you're seeing like that same image, but with like Doctor Strange's astral form on it. And then if you look at like the West Coast Avengers comic cover, you see that like same astral form of Doctor Strange in there. So it's kind of fun how they all kind of are having those throwbacks.
Yeah. Do these robots have cool names?
I think they're just like the robots and the stronger robots.
They're not like Rama Tut droids or...
Ramatons.
Ramatons. That's pretty good. That's pretty good.
Yeah, so meanwhile, they're putting Doctor Strange in some kind of sort of techie sarcophagus. He's able to use his ability to astral project to sort of get out right before they put up this energy field. Which definitely him astral projecting set me on a little bit of a research spiral. In real world, people supposedly can astral project, but it's more like they're living in a dream world that's a reconstitution. That is not how things seem to work in the Marvel Universe.
Okay.
But in the Marvel Universe, once you do astral project, you have 24 hours to get back to your body or else you die.
That makes sense.
So the West Coast Avengers, they run into the room with the sarcophagus. They can't use it, even though Wonder Man's powers seem to be working again after Turn-Off Powers gun hit him. So we do know that there is a time frame on that thing.
You know, it'd be great if he had a turned-off ego gun, because the whole issue is just him and Iron Man fighting. Is that like his thing? He's just like an egomaniac.
Well, it is like kind of a recurring thing that's been happening is like, yeah, since he's like rejoined, he feels like he's got to like try and one up Iron Man. And so there's been that alpha male battle.
It's very obnoxious.
It is very. And I feel like Wonder Man comes off especially so because, yeah, like we mentioned before, he kind of recklessly crushed all those guns, which caused all the injuries to Hawkeye.
Yeah.
So Doctor Strange, who's now free of his physical body, starts flying from the Sphinx into the palace where he goes into Rama Tut's throne room. He's about to try and read Rama Tut's mind when suddenly the Fantastic Four are brought in. And Strange reads Reed Richards' mind instead just to figure out why they're back there. So why are they back in time, Jimmy?
Yeah, so the Fantastic Four are back in time for a really interesting, unique reason. And, well, there's a simple answer and there's a story. So I'll give you the story. So Reed and Sue were at a history museum, and they found an exhibit that had some hieroglyphs that Reed was able to determine basically meant that there was some type of irradiated flower in the past, in Egypt specifically, that could cure blindness.
And this is all like looking at hieroglyphics. He's all, oh, obviously that's referring to a radioactive plant.
Clearly, just by looking at these pictures, that's a radioactive plant that could cure blindness. Because see, here there's a picture of a man with dark eyes, and this picture is a man with clear eyes. And in the middle, there's a plant with wavy lines.
Obviously, that was the ancient sign for radiation.
Well, and here's the crazy part. He wasn't wrong. He's the world's smartest man for a reason.
100%.
So they go back to like an abandoned Doctor Doom castle, and they find an abandoned time machine, and they take Ben Grimm's girlfriend, who remind me her name.
Alicia Masters, I want to say. My God.
Why do I want to call her Penny Lane? Is that not her name?
She is in your eyes.
Anyway, Ben Grimm's girlfriend is she is notably blind, and so the purpose of this journey is obviously to find a cure for her blindness. Also, they leave her in charge of working the time machine to both get them there and bring them back, which I think is like an inherently interesting concept of like, when and how do you push the buttons to bring somebody back when you're in the past?
Yeah, it seems like there's a time delay that's the same for everyone, just in terms of what seems to make the most sense through this. It's actually, every time traveler is kind of based on the same time machine. Like, this is the same time machine that later is going to be used. With the exception of Doctor Strange, the West Coast Avengers are using this exact same time machine that was stolen by those supervillains who sent them back in time.
Okay.
Yeah, this same one that the Fantastic Four are using, the same one that Rama Tut used the plans for to build the Sphinx time machine.
Yeah, so they go back in time, and I mean, sure enough, what we find out in later comics that we either have or will talk about, that is our time version selves talking, time traveled version selves, that hieroglyph was indeed Rama Tut, who, when he crash landed, had blinded himself somehow, did find that irradiated flower and cured his blindness. And so that's why they're back in time, Flonzo, because they're good friends. They're good people.
Those are really good friends.
Yeah. They care about Ben and his relationships.
And his girlfriend.
Yeah, it matters.
It does.
Yeah. Because, even though his skin is rock hard, his heart is as soft as an irradiated flower.
And on that note, I have no clever segue into the fact that the Fantastic Four, who were brought before Rama Tut when Doctor Strange learned all that from reading Reed's mind, including the flower metaphor. The West Coast Avengers are watching that all play out on screen, and they're like, oh, nice, the Fantastic Four came back to rescue us. And they're like, no, they're like 10 years older, so...
10 years younger.
Yeah, 10 years younger.
Yeah, so it's not the Fantastic Four they know. They're like, the costumes are different.
Yeah, they sent a message for the Fantastic Four to come back, and this younger version came back.
Yeah, it is not their Fantastic Four.
Which it just occurred to me, how do they know, like, this message that they left for the Fantastic Four just didn't get to them 10 years earlier than they went back in time?
Yeah, it's a great question.
Yeah. That just occurred to me.
Yeah, I don't know. They're cocky. That's how. And impatient. It's a terrible combination. We're cocky. We're impatient. We're stuck in Egypt. This guy has a plot gun. This sucks. Also, the Sphinx is a giant computer. What's even a computer in this time? Doctor Strange's cape is stuck in lasers? I hate it here. This is me as if I were Hawkeye. My wife is in New Mexico in the 1700s. There's a ghost man that poisoned her with a love potion. I hate it.
My life is crazy and I have bad days.
There's a tiger woman and a man with crazy eyes that won't stop arguing with Iron Man.
So speaking of bad days, Rama Tut is having a worse day than he knows. He's got the Fantastic Four with him. He's got the West Coast Avengers watching him through a monitor. He's got Doctor Strange astral projecting in the room with him. Plus, this is right around the time that his sort of chief advisor just got sent off to be arrested.
Yep. And so cutting back to the comic, a good way to frame this would be the Fantastic Four kind of first coming to terms with their introduction of Rama Tut, right? That's fair?
Yeah. Who we should mention, I don't think we've said it this episode, that Rama Tut is this is like Kang the Conqueror on his first time traveling adventure. Yeah.
And you've mentioned there's relationship between him and Reed Richards.
Yeah, so, I mean, there's been some retcons involved, but I think where it officially stands right now is he was named after Reed Richards' father, who was also time traveling.
Okay. Wacky Marvel.
Yeah.
So the Fantastic Four kind of coming to terms with what's going on. They're like, oh my gosh, we're in a throne room. Rama Tut says, "On your feet, captives. You are in the presence of the awesome Rama Tut, King of Kings, Master of Men, Lord of the Seven Suns." And he's kind of like, I know who you guys are. You're the Fantastic Four. And they're kind of like, how is this possible? How could he possibly know who we are? Fangirling a little bit. He's like, you're just as captivating as the ancient legends would say 1,000 years or however many thousands of years from now. And then he pulls out his ultra diode ray. That's what this thing is called, Flomp. It's an ultra diode ray.
Oh, ultra diodes. That's how it does so many different things.
Yeah, this was invented in the year 3000, 1,000 years further than their own future in their own century. Then this is where they put together that Rama Tut is indeed a time traveler. Then, for probably the 10th time in this series of stories, we get his origin story again, where he makes a Sphinx. He's bored of being a man of the future. He crashes into ancient Egypt. He shoots a bunch of people with his ultra diode.
And worth noting, this Fantastic Four issue is the original story that has inspired 2 episodes now worth of content.
Worth of this full just fucking being bored and wanting adventure and going blind. He quickly finds himself infatuated with Sue Storm and decides to take her on as his bride-to-be.
And this new marriage, it also affects what we were talking about last episode, in our episode on the Rise of Apocalypse comic. He was engaged to someone else, so there was some drama there. Listen to our last episode for more details. So, Doctor Strange, he saw one of the handmaidens who was attending to Susan Richards, or Susan Storm, as she's still called back at this point. And he's like, oh, obviously that's the past self of Morgana Blessing, so I can talk to her. We can head off this back through time traveling shard of her soul before.
Okay, so real quick to clarify, this side story is Doctor Strange still chasing that traveling shard, and he believes that Sue Storm is Morgana Blessing.
Sue Storm's handmaiden.
Sue Storm's handmaiden is Morgana Blessing. Got it.
Yeah.
And this relates back to Nightmare.
Exactly, because if that shard gets to the birth of humanity, humans will stop dreaming.
Okay. So not only are we in the past trying to stop Rama Tut, cure blindness, save nightmares,
and be able to travel back to their current time period for the West Coast Avengers.
Yes. Okay. The stakes are high, ladies and gentlemen.
Plus, in the background, Apocalypse is just trying to overthrow the oppressive government around him.
That's correct, which we don't see yet.
Well, I say that. He's trying to avenge his father, I guess,
Yeah, simultaneously.
Yeah, see our last episode.
Cool. Okay, so Morgana, what's you say, Morgana Blessing?
Yeah, it's her past self. This incarnation is only known as the Handmaiden.
Okay.
But if you check out this panel right here...
Okay.
You can see that, this same character first appeared back in the Fantastic Four issue with a much lighter skin tone.
Okay. Yeah, so she shows up here kind of getting Sue prepped for her marriage to Rama Tut.
Exactly. So he sees her, recognizes who she is, and makes it so she can perceive his astral form, and starts talking to her because, of course, Doctor Strange knows how to speak ancient Egyptian.
Of course. Sorcerer Supreme. It's 101. No ancient languages.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's how in those prep schools, Latin's, mandatory learning.
Yeah.
When you study to be a doctor in strangeness.
He has a PhD in eerie. What did you minor in? Kooky.
I was going to make the exact joke with the obscure. So, then Doctor Strange, he tells the handmaiden, hey, you know that secret passage that goes into the Sphinx. Go ahead and meet me there later on. So they agree to that, and then he takes off. And if you look on that page, you can see some of the other things that they're having the Thing and other characters do now that Rama Tut has them under his control.
Yeah. So some of those things include they have Ben Grimm, the Thing, rowing a boat, as one does. They have Reed Richards doing like reconnaissance and looking out because he's very stretchy and tall. And they have the Human Torch effectively being like a human jester. He's like juggling fireballs and spitting fireballs for Rama Tut's pleasure. And Rama Tut's very pleased with this. I think this is a fun panel where he says, "How easily I've humbled 4 of Earth's greatest heroes. Truly, none can ever defy me." The power has gone to his head, Flonzo. He's a madman.
Yeah.
And so one of the things that is interesting about this story in particular, I'd love to get your take on this, Flons, is as Ben Grimm is like rowing the boat, the rays of the sun alter his molecules in his body, and he changes back to a man. He's just a normal dude.
Well, it turns out Doctor Strange has little something to do with this.
Little spooky?
So Doctor Strange, he tells the handmaiden, hey, meet me at that underground entrance to the Sphinx. You know what I'm talking about. She says, yeah. He says, meet me there soon. And she's, like, okay, a ghost man just told me to do something. I'll do it.
Why not? Crazier things have happened.
Yeah.
Stranger things.
Doctor Stranger Things. So he flies over to Ben Grimm rowing that boat. And like you said in the original explanation, the sun's rays caused him just to turn back into his human form, which was something that happened to him more in those early Fantastic Four issues where he just turned into his human form. But I think this is probably one of the bigger stretches of how that happened.
Yeah.
Fortunately, it was retconned that Doctor Strange actually went in, turned him into a human form, which then allowed him to fight off his captors. He then whispers to him, no, you can't win this fight, swim, causing him to swim the shore. He gives him instructions on how to get there, gives him instructions how to climb up the, palace walls to get in the room, where then things progress.
And how things have progressed into manly things, punching things, and
things turning back into their rocky form as Strange's spell wears off.
Yeah. So Ben turns back into the Thing, and he wrestles. He doesn't wrestle the gun. He kind of sneaks up before he turns into the Thing, steals the diode ultra ray from
the plot device
from Rama Tut, and then gives him the old one too, knocks him down. Then he starts turning back into the Thing, and he de-warps everybody so they get their powers back. And then the tables quickly turn on Rama Tut because the Fantastic Four are now they're starting to get their powers back. They're not depowered, which this is like one of the funniest things to me. Like Rama Tut, like he's just like deuces, I'm out. He's like this brazen, emboldened, like I'm the world's greatest. And he's like, shit.
Shit, actual adventure, actual adversity.
Oh no, actual hardship, I gotta run. And so he runs through like a false wall into a secret passage. And it's at this point that you see the Thing take this pillar and he throws it at the interior guards.
So basically, as soon as the Fantastic Four first showed up in front of Rama Tut, the West Coast Avengers found some robots and started fighting them. They have been fighting the same group of robots this entire time throughout the sort of enslavement period of the Fantastic Four.
Yeah, I don't know if we ever landed on like the Egyptrons or the Sphinxoids or...
Ooh.
But so they've been fighting them the whole time.
Yeah.
Okay.
Scarab-BattleBots.
Scarab-BattleBots. Damn. That's it. That's the winner.
Yeah, so they've been fighting these sort of more advanced versions of the same robots all this time, finally defeat them, go on, and then they encounter a bunch of Rama Tut's men holding guns, which actually one thing we haven't mentioned is Rama Tut's men look very different from those, like, headdress-wearing Ozymandias' soldiers we saw on the Apocalypse, so... I think there's some distinction between the uniforms of like Rama Tut's men and Ozymandias' men.
Yeah, there's like... It's interesting that you say that because there does appear to be like multiple layers of military personnel here. And I think there's like within the Sphinx, and then there's like the external like Egyptian people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's notable that these are the guys, this is the only time you see like people aside from Rama Tut who have guns in ancient Egypt.
Question, because I know in the last episode we did about Apocalypse, there were the Dust Stormers. Is that who initially intercepted Fantastic Four?
No, they would have been wiped out by this time. So I think that was, and they're kind of, those were soldiers who are dressed a lot like these soldiers are. So I think those were like Rama Tut's men who were not serving under Ozymandias.
Okay.
Is my headcanon to explain all these things.
I love it. But did he fall in the pit, Flonzo?
He did fall in the pit. Even if he didn't fall all the way in, he fell in the pit.
I'll buy it.
So while the West Coast Avengers are starting their battle with some of Rama Tut's men, the Fantastic Four finish off their battle as Thing throws that column at him.
Yeah, and so kind of like I had previously mentioned, you now have the Human Torch doing a little bit of reconnaissance. He has the ultra diode ray, and he's looking for Reed Richards. And I actually really love this one panel. You have a couple, it looks like merchants, and they see the Human Torch flying, and they just say, "Behold, in the sky, an omen from the gods.
We must flee this land. It's truly bewitched."
Yeah, absolutely. And so Human Torch comes across a battalion of Rama Tut's army that Reed is supporting, where he's just like a giant shield. And again, I think I just like want to call out like how much I love like the art from these like older comics. Like it's just Reed as this giant shield with these like humongous spikes sticking out of him. And I love like the chonky lines and like the thick bold colors. Like there's no shading. It's just such a classic look. Human Torch hits him with the diode ray, gets his powers back, and he turns into a giant whale, and he says, "Yay, Bo, let's get on out of here."
And that army that Reed's fighting, I'm, tying this back into the grander narrative. I'm thinking is the rebellion that was stirred up by Apocalypse's death and resurrection.
Yeah, I could see that. Absolutely. Because this would be right around the time where the Sphinx does explode and Rama Tut escapes in the...
Spoilers, Jimmy.
We talked about it last week, Fonzo. But yes, spoilers.
Yeah. I think it actually shows that in every one of these upcoming comics. So next we come to the Handmaiden, who's the reincarnation of Morgana Blessing, or the past incarnation of Morgana Blessing. She had gone through the tunnel, is in the Sphinx, and then is able to operate the controls to release Doctor Strange from the sarcophagus that was holding his body. From there, Rama Tut just runs by. He's like, "Who are you guys? I don't have time for this." Snaps his fingers, and then a bunch of lasers start shooting at him as he runs by. So
I need my ultra diodes. More diodes.
I mean, he doesn't have his diode gun, so...
He's got to get the wall diodes.
I mean, can you believe there was a time where every wall didn't have its own diode?
It's shocking. That's Egypt for you.
So, the lasers are firing all around. Doctor Strange is like, okay, well, those are protecting Rama Tut. If we had the opposite direction, they won't hit us. And meanwhile... the floor's heating up from the Human Torch right underneath where he was standing.
Okay, so important to note that before the Human Torch kind of heated up their escape plan, the Ultra Diode was atomized by a booby trap, which is extremely sad to me. Not the plot gun.
Yeah, they try following Rama Tut in the way he came, and they're like, wait, maybe that's sabotage, throwing the gun to destroy it.
Yeah. That was my favorite character of this whole series, was the Ultra Diode Ray.
It can turn off your will, it can turn off your superpowers, it can turn off your stove.
It could make you a court jester. So as Flonzo said, the Human Torch, he burns a hole in the ground as they continue to look for a way out of this fond house of a sphinx. They continue to go up and out. They come across a screen with Rama Tut where he continues to vow to trap and destroy them. They are met with a pipe that starts to spew out water in an attempt to drown them. Of course, the Human Torch has a response for this. He's going to go ahead and vaporize that water so that it's nice and steamy, which I would bet was just so uncomfortable for the thing. He just turns into like sauna stones at that point. It's just awful, awful feeling. I can only imagine. They're continuing to search for the core of the Sphinx, kind of breaking through walls, and they're going through the panels.
So, meanwhile, back outside the Sphinx, Doctor Strange and the Handmaiden are meeting. He calls upon the powers of the Vishanti, which are kind of the main sort of godly trinity that he talks to a lot of the time, one of which is actually Agamotto, who was in the original Avengers 1 million BC for some of our OG listeners out there. But yeah, so he calls upon them and is able to stop the Soul Shard. And when he does that, she sees every lifetime between now and when she's Morgana Blessing. And kind of like relay some of the stuff that's happening in the future. Morgana Blessing is deeply in love with Doctor Strange, which is happening because she's seen him in all these different timelines, and she initially falls in love because she sees how she's loved him throughout the timeline.
Interesting.
Yeah. So it's sort of this self-fulfilling loop of her being in love with him.
What a random side story.
Yeah. Yeah, just that stress of seeing what every single lifetime you're going to have for 5,000 years.
Yeah.
She just passes out from the stress of it. And he says, you know, even with all my mystical training, I almost passed out from that. So,
wow.
So yeah, while that is happening, what's going on with the Fantastic Four inside the Sphinx?
So after... effectively going through this maze of traps and punching their way through the internal mechanisms of this ridiculous Sphinx, they get to the core of it, which they've been looking for, and they find like a missile, which is actually an escape pod, and Rama Tut is inside, and effectively they're like, "Hey, we got you. You're dead to rights." He's like, "Too late. You're going to catch me in another dimension at another time. Deuces, I'm out." And he launches off, leaving them inside the Sphinx. As the rocket ship, escape pod,
yeah,
extra dimensional fucking flea machine escapes, we shift back over to the West Coast Avengers. And we see Iron Man punching through a wall. And they themselves are simultaneously kind of working their way through the Sphinx. As they're, walking through, they're kind of having their own dialogue, their internal kind of conflict. And then the Sphinx starts to kind of rumble. And they happen to be near a screen where they can see the escape pod fleeing.
So as he's taking off in his escape pod, Rama Tut's sort of making his plans to go to another time, and he knows that he'll be forgotten from this timeline.
Yeah.
Or, like this part of the historical record, he knows there's going to be a gap there.
Except when he's on those hieroglyphs. He will be remembered as the man who cured blindness with optic nerve restorer. Trademark.
But it would take the smartest man in the world to see that and realize that plan is radioactive.
So, it's at this point that Reed Richards walks out and he's holding this like spherical kind of cone-shaped vessel that very appropriately has the English writing optic nerve restorer on it, which seems to be a fun little foil for this story.
So at this point, the West Coast Avengers run into, where the escape pod had taken off from and realize that, there's no way for them to be able to use that time machine. Suddenly they hear an explosion and see that all the technology's destroyed, which might have been Rama Tut's doing or might have been just Apocalypse coming through really fast and destroying it all.
Yeah. Could have been one or the other.
One or the other.
Yeah.
Maybe both.
Or maybe it was that attacking army.
Yeah, maybe they just came through and looted all the technology.
Yeah. Or maybe it was Venom.
Totally Venom.
Or maybe Galactus. Who else was here, Flonzo? Maybe they were all there. I don't fucking know.
Stories for future writers to write.
So it was at that point that the West Coast Avengers, they found the hatch that Rama Tut had escaped from. The Sphinx was crumbling around them, and so they hop out and use the same escape strategy that everyone else did to get away from this explosion.
Everyone's following Rama Tut's lead. So after these explosions are going off inside the Sphinx, we see the Fantastic Four outside the Sphinx. They're hearing the explosion. They assume it was Rama Tut destroying things, but as we noted, it was probably Venom.
Easily.
Meanwhile, outside the Sphinx, Dr. Doom.
He's here too?
I mean, he is the inventor of the time machine, but the other doctor, who is actually friends with Doctor Doom, Doctor Strange, used his past medical experience to sort of, bring the handmaiden back from consciousness after passing out from seeing her past.
From consciousness.
And so they see Rama Tut take off, and they also see sort of the explosions from inside the Sphinx, which I feel like is conveyed in the art in a really interesting way.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
Yeah, kind of with the lettering on the object.
Yeah, that's fun.
Yeah, I don't think I would have gotten it's an explosion coming from inside from the art alone, but having read the other issues for context, I'm like, oh, that's a cool way of showing that scene.
Yeah. Like,
as you mentioned, it's kind of interesting to think about the time lapse of things, but it's right around this point that Alicia ends up the blind girlfriend of the Thing, brings them back to their current time.
Yeah, and simultaneously the West Coast Avengers are seeing this.
Yeah, as well as Doctor Strange, actually.
Yeah.
Who then says goodbye to the handmaiden. She swears, "Oh, I'll never forget you," which, as we see in the future and the future timelines in between, is true.
Yeah, and Hawkeye has this audible groan of we're never getting back.
Yeah.
Fuck.
Well, actually, the other Avengers are kind of that way, but then Hawkeye's like, well, yeah, wait, I did
have that letter.
Yeah, there is that letter, and he knows that deal he made with Khonshu, so...
Yeah, so he's really holding out on his letter. Okay, so the West Coast Avengers have effectively seen all of their exit strategies kind of go poof up in smoke. And so now they're back at the Temple of Khonshu with the priests, kind of talking about, what are they going to do next? Kind of like you'd mentioned earlier, Flans, Hawkeye, he's not saying, we're stuck here, but he's we're going to be here for a while. He starts saying, we need to fashion some weapons.
Yeah. Well, and also the priests in this time kind of point out, oh, it's important that you're here, because if you didn't distract those robots, then Doctor Strange wouldn't have been able to escape to do his thing, so that the Fantastic Four did their thing, so...
Yeah. And so the priests also recommend, if you're going to fashion some weapons, we prefer some ivory. They have ivory that you can use.
And these end up being... So if you're familiar with Khonshu in the Marvel Universe at all, you're probably familiar with the character of Moon Knight, who is sort of like a warrior who fights on Khonshu's behalf. And actually, we didn't talk about this in our Avengers 1 million BC episode, but there was actually a Moon Knight that far back as well, who joined after all the stories we talked about.
Yeah. So this issue, so Moon Knight he's prominent throughout this story, but this is kind of the first time we're going to talk about his role here.
Yeah, absolutely.
So go for it, Flans.
Yeah, he's sort of Khonshu's spirit of vengeance within the Marvel Universe. And what we're seeing in this scene is that Hawkeye carved his weapons, or at least some early version of his weapons.
Yeah.
So, as he's doing that, Moon Knight's in the future working with the Fantastic Four on potentially making a time machine.
On their version of the Fantastic Four.
Yeah. This is the 10 years later version of the Fantastic Four, not the older version that was back in ancient Egypt with them.
Right. And I think it's important to note, too, that future Moon Knight received a message from Khonshu when Hawkeye was in the Land of the Dead.
Exactly, yeah. So
So to tie that back to previously what we had talked about, when they were all knocked out by the plot ray and taken to the temple, Khonshu had a conversation with Hawkeye. That message was sent into the future. Moon Knight received it. Well, he sneaks into is it the Avengers facility to meet with Hank Pym and Firebird?
That sounds right.
Yeah, there's a little bit of a story that unfolds there. Do we want to get into that too?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so real quick, just jumping off from memory, because I don't think that was in this particular episode. That was in a previous issue. Moon Knight meets up with Hank Pym and Firebird because he needs a time machine to go back in time. It's at this point, Hank Pym is basically saying, like, I've given up the moniker of Ant-Man, Giant Man. I am now Dr. Pym. And he's just like, hey, look at all my neat gadgets, everybody. I can make things shrink and I can make things grow. And
yeah, and he was like at the beginning of this story arc, he's at the point of like gun to his head about to commit suicide.
Yeah. Super important to note. Can you talk a little bit about Firebird?
I can talk a little bit about Firebird.
Yeah, because I know nothing about her other than there's like clearly like a romantic thing between her and Dr. Pym.
Yeah, because, I mean, he's got... And actually, if you guys are interested in us ever doing an episode on the very unhealthy relationship between Hank Pym and the Wasp, some of this stuff I think would end up being included in that. He's got the gun to his head, he's about to kill himself, and then she showed up to be like, hey, I need you, and then ends up, they talk through, she ends up giving him the hope to live again. So
yeah,
that's kind of the dawning of that romantic relationship. She's got fire powers, she's from Arizona, Benita Juarez is her real name. And she had visions of like this like past version of herself, who then Hawkeye encountered during the time travel exploit.
Yeah, I think it'd be helpful to kind of illustrate a little bit of the timeline.
Yeah, like the generations that are going through here.
The generations, yeah. So Hawkeye, he writes the letter, and it's given to Carolina.
Carolina?
Yeah. Does he give it to her?
Yeah, he does.
So he gives it to her. Then that letter finds its way into a Bible.
It's like he tells her, put it somewhere safe. Some like family keepsake, treasure chest, family Bible, something like that.
So they chose the family Bible. Then that family Bible is given to the church, and Isabella stills it.
Yeah, Isabella, who's Carolina's like descendant.
Yeah, exactly. So that's just a little brief kind of generational timeline for how Hawkeye's note went from Carolina to Isabella, and then to them basically saying, hey, we're trapped in Egypt, come find us.
Yeah, and then it comes back to Benita Juarez, who's like further down. I believe that same family line.
So that is how Hank Pym, Benita Juarez, and Moon Knight ultimately get the message. And then they connect with the Fantastic Four, who has the technology to travel back in time to reunite everybody in ancient Egypt.
Yeah, and I didn't mention this actually, but the Fantastic Four, they did have a time machine, but it was stolen by those like stereotypical Arizona-themed supervillains who then set the Avengers back in time. So there's a whole side story where the Fantastic Four had to rebuild a time machine because theirs was stolen.
Long story short, Moon Knight, Dr. Pym, and Firebird connect with the Fantastic Four to start time traveling back and join the party.
So, like, yeah, right as Hawkeye's done making these weapons that will eventually be Moon Knight's, there's this great sort of 3-panel of them coming in on the time platform in front of the West Coast Avengers.
Yeah. And so we have the West Coast Avengers kind of in shock, like, oh, snap, we know you. And then a very gleeful Avengers assemble. Everyone's so excited. Our friends. Everyone's here. And then you see, Moon Knight. He's seeing the priests of Khonshu. They're like, oh, you're the ones from the 20th century. And yeah. So it kind of jumps back and forth here a bit, Flonzo. So what do you want to focus on?
Let's talk about their next time-traveling spot. So what's going on in the 1800s?
We jump to the year 1876 on the Arizona-New Mexico border where we meet Mockingbird. What can you tell us about Mockingbird, Flonzo?
To be honest, I mainly know her from her appearances in the West Coast Avengers. I know she was married to Hawkeye for quite a long time while they were on the team together. And
she's with this man, Lincoln, who is dressed up as this ghostly figure. Who is this guy?
That is kind of, don't want to say necessarily the original Ghost Rider. I think he's like the second or third Phantom Rider, who's like an Old West character who kind of, his whole gimmick was he'd, use kind of stage tricks to make people think he was a ghost as he'd ride in.
He's a real goofer. He's a real goofy boy.
That might be a little generous for this iteration of the character.
What's not goofy is giving women love potions and making them ride through the Arizona sun with you where they forget their identity, though. That's pretty fucked up.
Yeah.
So in this particular scene, Mockingbird does not know who she is or where she is, although she believes that she is currently in love with this Phantom Rider, although she's having this kind of like visceral reaction to him, right? And so she jumps on his horse, takes off, kind of knowing that I need to get away, I need some air. All the while, there are these two other riders that see her, and they're following her. It's Two Gun, and then what's the other guy's name? Two Gun.
The Outlaw Kid, is it?
Outlaw Kid. Thank you.
Hey, Flonzo from the future here. Just want to make a little correction there. We were actually reading a version of this comic from a dimension where the Outlaw Kid appears in this comic, but then we realized that the dimension that you guys are going to be listening to this in, it's actually the Rawhide Kid in it. So just so you know, anytime you hear the words Outlaw Kid, just think about it as Rawhide Kid, and that's pretty much the same comic you guys have in your universe.
And so they are back in time. Well, this is their current time, but they know of Hawkeye and Mockingbird.
Yeah.
How do they know them?
Just through other time travel adventure shenanigans.
Okay.
I know one of them had spent some time in the future even. I think it's actually the Outlaw Kid. Feel free to complain in the comments if I'm saying that wrong. Flonzo from the future here again. I guess in your guys' universe, it was the Two Gun Kid who went into the future. Go figure. Yeah, so the Avengers had gone back in time before, met these guys. One of them had spent some time in the future with the Avengers, so...
Yeah. So Two Gun and the Outlaw Kid are on a mission, Flonzo. You understand? You're tracking? They're on a mission to save Mockingbird from the Knight Rider. And effectively, what the way that they perceive this mission is that they have to get her memory back. Mm-hmm. And so the way that they do this, I think, is hysterical. They're like, we're gonna dress up as like Hawkeye and we're gonna shoot arrows at her to get her to remember her husband. And it's just like this really funny like knockoff costume. It has like rips in it and it's like all the wrong colors, and she like immediately like recognizes like, hey, you can't shoot an arrow, like pins him against a tree with her like batons, and they get in a fight, and she does kind of remember Hawkeye. She's like, oh my gosh, my love, all the things. She does snap back to it and recognizes the threat that is the Knight Rider. So the three of them then go on this hunt for vengeance against the Knight Rider that leads to like places like Lordsburg, New Mexico, which I was telling you like a couple days ago is where my grandparents, they lived the majority of their life, which is like there's nothing in that town. The way that they drew it, there's like way more things in that town. Maybe in the 1700s there were, but yeah, there's nothing in that town.
We live in Nevada, and out here there's some ghost places
towns
that were like major cities that are like towns now.
Yeah. So the next series of events, it was so delightful to read through, because it's like a Scooby-Doo episode of like, we're gonna fight this like old man Dithers, and he's gonna have all of his bag of tricks to like to be a ghost. And
that is a good way to describe what Phantom Rider does. Is he's very much like, imagine a Scooby-Doo villain.
Literally.
Like all those tricks, those are his superpowers.
Yeah. Is he flying? Nope, that's stilts. Is that him with glowing in the sky? No, it's just a lantern floating with a string behind him. And so they go through this like really funny process of like being like equally terrified and like demystifying his tricks, right? Eventually they do kind of corner him and push him off the side of a cliff, and like kind of this like thundering, raining, very dramatic scene where Mockingbird does get her vengeance ultimately. And then they they go on their way. The sun comes out tomorrow, as it were. So that's kind of the long and short of what happens in old Arizona.
Up until the West Coast Avengers who were recently in ancient Egypt pop back in.
Until they come back, right. So there is a brief kind of interstitial, right? So we were previously talking about the Avengers come back. Well, they were in Egypt. Other Avengers came to Egypt, picked up those Avengers, including Moon Knight, and they hitched their ride back to go get Mockingbird. And there's this like horribly racist caricature of like Native Americans in there. Yeah. I forget, they call them the Comanches, are helping them basically bury the body of the Phantom Rider. And they have like, these dudes are like, quote unquote, like their skin is red. They have like buffalo pelts on their head and like really kind of like generic looking war paint on, but drawn like white dudes.
Yeah.
It's just very racist caricatures. It's hard to look at, but also very of the time. Yeah, don't love it. They also have like skulls on sticks. Anyway, the Comanches, as they were, see the Avengers come back in their time machine. They get a little defensive. Mockingbird sees, obviously, her husband. There's a big loving kiss. And that's kind of where this story ends.
Yeah. Everyone kind of has returned to their own time. Fantastic Four. Turns out because it was radioactive and didn't go back in time with them, they couldn't bring the cure back, so...
Yeah, that... I'm glad you brought that up, because that's, like, one of the, like, most disappointing things, where it's, like, they went through all this trouble to be good friends and support Ben and his partner, and it's like, well, too bad.
Yeah.
The optic nerve restorer does not work once it travels through time.
Well, and you can see the convoluted, like, well, it can't travel because it was radioactive. Wait, aren't they radioactive? Because it was radioactive and didn't go back in time in the first place.
Yeah. A wild series of events in this.
Totally.
Yeah.
You also have Doctor Strange who gets back, and apparently while he was gone, his long-term girlfriend, Clea, who there's much to be said there, she had read Morgana Blessing's mind, or realized she loved Doctor Strange more than she did, so, like, left him over that, knowing she could never love him as much as Morgana Blessing did.
Did she leave it in a Bible 10,000 years ago for him to find today?
Well, it's the only assured way to get a message across.
Truly, and you have to leave it for the Fantastic Four.
Oh, of course.
Or have an ancient Egyptian god send it to you.
Yeah. It's I don't know.
Standard note-giving procedures.
Who sends emails?
Not me. I send Conchu emails. K-mail.
Kanchiahu?
Conchu. Sorry.
Yeah, the West Coast Avengers, they end up defeating the villains who sent them back in time and have a kind of awkward disagreement between Mockingbird and Hawkeye over whether or not she should have killed Phantom Rider.
Yeah.
It also put some strain on that relationship. Meanwhile, you have Rama Tut himself, who went through time, ended up becoming Scarlet Centurion, ended up becoming Kang, ended up being all these various supervillains. And then around the time he was 60, he started to get bored again for different reasons. By this time, he would ruled over multiple timelines, and it was just taking care of the bureaucracy, and he just missed those simple younger days when he was King the Conqueror. So he went back to the year 2937 BC to rule as Rama Tut once more. And then eventually he got ready for his next adventure, destroyed his time machine, got ready for deep sleep, and then as he was like slowly going to sleep, he encountered the West Coast Avengers on their way going backwards through time. And they said, hey, we need this time machine. He's like, I destroyed all that. You guys should go further back in time. And restart the episode from the beginning if you Want to see what happens next there. Yeah, other than that, time kept going on in the Egyptian desert, and those, various tools that Hawkeye had carved were being used by a Moon Knight who ended up serving in the Brotherhood of S.H.I.E.L.D., which went on to become an organization you may have heard of.
Yeah. So, question for you, Fonzo. This was, I mean, and correct me if I'm wrong, was this like an early example of them like retconning issues?
Oh, yeah. This is them retconning an issue with a Doctor Strange comic and then retconning that comic with a West Coast Avengers comic.
Yeah. In like really interesting ways, right?
Yeah.
They're like, we need to weave this tale, so we're going to pull all of these assets together to tell this absolutely insane story.
Yeah.
That like just persisted into like Age of Apocalypse.
Yeah.
And then like all these other things. Like it's a fascinating relic that I think you did a really good job like curating all these individual stories.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
I like making me a timeline.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's
yeah,
crazy.
Marvel, if you ever want someone to compile one giant comic of all this, let me know.
Any last words, dude?
I guess just the standards, like, subscribe, check out some of the sources in the notes.
Yeah.
So we have those now.
And thank you for enduring the absolute buffoonery of Rama Tut and Knight Rider and
the Phantom Rider.
Phantom Rider. Was it Phantom or Knight?
It's Phantom Rider,
It's Knight Rider.
It's definitely Phantom Rider.
I think it's Knight Rider. I think it's Knight Rider. I think you're going to be shocked when you look it up after we end this.
I think I've known about this character for years, and his name's Phantom Rider.
Okay. I think it's Knight Rider. I think he's a car. Thank you so much for listening.
We'll continue this argument after we close this. Yeah, very Catholic.
Yeah. My grandpa was in Sabanur.